Today, we're talking about fearless leadership for this moment. And I think we all know what we mean by this moment, but we'll certainly get more into that. So we're really excited to have our panelists here today. I'm Yvonne Sims. When I had a haircut a long time ago, I'm an educational programming manager here at Candid. And if you don't know Candid, you should know that we are the coming together of GuideStar and Foundation Center. So if you know those two organizations, you know that we have a lot of data, we have a lot of things all to help the sector, including trainings and workshops and webinars like the one we're on today. Something new we're trying. Anytime we have one of these webinars that are the topic is a little different, we get really, really lively people in the chat, which we love. People are sharing information, people are asking each other questions, people are answering other people's questions. There's a lot. And so we're trying something a little different, and I'll get this link into the chat. We're essentially building a directory. Totally optional if you'd like to put your name in the directory and what you do and why you're interested in building community, and then we'll send it out. So there's a QR code on the screen. There's also a bit.ly link that I'll put in chat once we kind of get rolling. But yes, we are looking to just capitalize on the fact that you all want to talk to each other, and that's a good thing. All right. So we're getting to the good part now. This is one of the webinars where I'm not sure if I get to do less or not, but we have a different moderator. So Crystal, who loves to come hang out and has worked with Candid many, many times, will be moderating today. And I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Yvonne, for inviting me back yet another time. I think I've been a guest speaker here maybe 5 or 6 times now over the years, and I'm very excited to be back with Candid. You all have been good to me and allowing me to use your platform to share all of the work that I do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Crystal Cherry. I am the board pro. I am the board whisperer, the board guru, the Beyonce of board leadership. So if you have a nonprofit and you are having issues with your board, whether it's fundraising or conflict resolution or DEI or just straight up governance and engagement, look me up at theboardpro.com. And I would love to chat with you. So I'm excited to be here today, guys, because I've invited my friends. So I chatted with Yvonne, told her I wanted to come on and bring a panel of some of my colleagues who I respect, who are doing fabulous work in the sector. And so I reached out to all three of them and asked them if they would be here. And they said yes. So I'm so excited to bring to the floor Jaquetta Watkins, who's the executive director of the Study Hall. And the Study Hall is doing amazing work here in Atlanta. In fact, this is a nonprofit that my network, we have a giving circle chose to support this year. So if you might be interested in learning more about the study hall, please go to their website. Darquetta is going to tell you more about their work, but please make a donation. They are helping our babies here in Atlanta, and she's a phenomenal leader. So Darquetta, welcome. Tell us a little bit about the study hall.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Crystal, as well as thank you, Candid, for the opportunity. The study hall that's showing there on the screen is an academic after-school and summer enrichment program. We're located in Northwest Atlanta. You can actually go to the next slide. Thank you. And so our mission is, as an after-school program, is to provide services offering educational and enrichment curriculum that equips children to achieve sustained personal and academic success. And so we do that through our 5-point scholar model that includes academics, cultural enrichment, civic engagement, financial literacy, and wellness. And we have provided services to over 3,000 scholars over our 35-year history. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so here's a breakdown of our impact. 60% of our scholars improved or maintained their grade level performance in reading and math this school year. The enrichment activities that we provide to each of our scholars on Friday include dance, dance, culinary arts, capoeira, which is African Brazilian martial arts, STEAM, photography, dance are offered to our scholars weekly. We also provide a dinner meal to our scholars after school, as well as during the summer that is taking place right now. They're receiving breakfast and lunch. And lastly, This is how you can reach us at thestudyhall.org. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary. We would love to have you all be a part of that celebration. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jaquetta. And I will tell you, I had an opportunity to take a tour of the study hall last week. Jaquetta was kind enough to give me a tour, and I toured the facilities, and I was so impressed with the classrooms. It looks like a school, right? Even though it's an after-school program, the resources that they have there for the kids are phenomenal. So thank you, Jaquetta, for the great work that you're doing. So next up, we're going to bring to the floor I think we bring in Chris. Are we bringing Chris back to the floor? Where's that slide, Yvonne, to show me who's up next?
I'm sorry. Hold on a second.
I think we have to go back one or two slides.
Yep. Oh, yes, I will go back. See what happens when you come here?
Not working.
No, I get
Sorry.
it. But yeah, he's like, I know who I am. I can go ahead and do this. But yes, just so y'all
Oh no,
know,
I
this
think
is what
oh no,
happens when
all we got next is Jamal. Okay, so Jamal and
yes.
I have been friends for a long time, and he happens to live across the street from me. So he's also a neighbor.
Yes.
We met when his eldest daughter was, I guess, about a year old, and she's now what, Jamal, 23?
19, sophomore at
19?
Spelman College.
Yes, so I've seen her grow up. She was a toddler when they came to my home for the first time, and now she's 19 and a wonderful young lady. And Jamal is not only a neighbor and friend, but a colleague who I really respect for the work that he does in our sector. And I've watched his career blossom, and he is now the executive director at Strive Atlanta, an absolutely wonderful organization. Jamal, tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. Thank you for that. I will cash app you later, Crystal, for the good words. I appreciate that. So I'm Jamal Vales. I'm the founding executive director of Strive Atlanta here in Atlanta. Strive, I think I saw someone in the chat say you partnered with Strive in New York, so I love that. Strive is a national organization celebrating 42 years, really focused in or founded in Harlem. That's our flagship. About 5 years ago, after a strategic plan, the board said, we want to grow, we want to expand, we want to make impact. And so they did the due diligence of where should we be, and Atlanta, which has tons of data to say why it's needed, was planted. So I've become the founding executive director. I've been hazed because 2 months after I started, the pandemic hit. And so all of my milestones that were intended for year one became year three as we shifted to virtual services in order to make traction in the ground. What we do is workforce development, creating pathways to possible through job training, job placement, coaching, really looking at and serving the person versus the participant. What that means is a core focus in soft and essential skills. Before we get to hard skills, before we get to occupational skills, we really look to unpack the things that have presented challenges in the workforce arena, and we really try to mitigate those barriers by serving the full person. In Atlanta, we have launched with 2 tracks focused in logistics and office operations. Those have been the sectors and high demand industries that we tap into, to a 5 pillar model: career readiness training, job skills training, career coaching, job placement assistance, and then lifetime support. So that collective model has really allowed us to tap into Atlanta in a meaningful way. We are celebrating our 5th anniversary this fall. I'll be sure to share that information and looking forward to just continuing to grow. Our programs are Career Path, which is our older. Absolutely glad to share slides. Our Career Path program is focused on the older demographic, beyond 18, all the way through. I have graduated a 72-year-old through Career Path.
Oh,
And then our
wow.
Future Leaders program, which is supported by DOL and others, is really focused on that youth and young adult demographic, those that are really exploring what work even is, different than Career Path. Those are our 2 programs. I will launch a new one, which I won't share today, this year. And that's Strive Atlanta. So look forward to connecting.
Wow, Jamal, I can't believe it's been 5 years. I remember when you were looking for an office building, and now you're 5 years in. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so now I'm going to bring to the floor one of my favorite people, a fellow who I've met in the Zoom rooms over over the COVID years, and I've seen him out and about town. My friend Christopher Beck, who spent a lot of time at St. Jude Research Hospital, which is an organization that I really admire. And I've just seen his career blossom. I have seen him making moves and taking names, and I am just very impressed with this brother. And so when we were thinking about how to round out this panel, I was like, I gotta call Chris. And thankfully, he said yes. And so he's here today to talk about his career and the work he does at the High Museum. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what up, fam? Hey, glad to be here.
Hey, hey.
Hey, glad to be here. So, listen, everybody, my name is Christopher Beck. Currently with the High Museum of Atlanta, which it's the arts and culture. And I like to think of the High as more than a museum. We have tons of programs, everything from working with seniors with Alzheimer's disease. We have, if you go to Facebook or whatever or TikTok, you can see a High Frequency Friday program. That's for the young folks, if you will. Those. Let's say from 25 to 40, they're up in there doing their thing. And we have the jazz for for the smooth and sexy people. So we have something for everybody, you know what I'm saying? So we're glad to be here. And I literally say that the High is more than a museum because literally our CEO likes to think of it as he wants to make art accessible to everybody. Like that's one of our big goals. And so, and they're truly doing it. He likes to also say that we want the museum to look like Atlanta. Atlanta is very diverse. And so we want the museum to mimic that. So, hey, glad to be here.
Hey, Chris, you guys still have the jazz at the High?
Yeah,
Oh
20
man,
years strong, 20 years strong, man.
that's a
Yes, and
wonderful.
Chris told me I could come for free so that, everyone
Yeah.
heard it here. You heard it here today.
And you put me on blast like that, Yvonne. Come on, man.
I just did. All
So
right.
before we talk about why the conversation we have matters now, because it really does, I just want to shout out. I'm looking at the chat. We have people here from all over. I saw someone here from Kenya. I think I saw someone from Canada. A lot of folks from New York, which is my hometown. I was just in the Shy yesterday, so I think I saw a few people from Chicago. So I just want to acknowledge that people are chiming in from all over the country. And I just want to say hello and welcome. So let's get ready for a really wonderful and juicy conversation because this is important. And so we are here to talk about with our nonprofit leaders about what's going on. We know that we've had so many challenges happen this year. Our budgets are tightening up. We've had some political whiplash. A lot of folks are burned out, right? And we're being called to do more. So this conversation isn't it's just timely. It's really essential. And so these leaders are here today to answer some really good questions about how they are managing through the chaos, right? And we want to stay positive. My friend Chris, I told me I need to stay positive, and so we're going to talk about some of the challenges, but we also going to talk about some of the opportunities. So I'm really glad and ready to jump in. So I think we have a poll question, Yvonne, to jump us off, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I also have a lot of buttons. Okay, hold on. Here
Okay,
comes the
so
poll
my poll
question.
question is, okay, so the original question was, what was an area of struggle for you right now? But my friend Chris told me to change it to opportunity. So it's, what is an area of opportunity for you right now at your nonprofit? Is it funding? Is it board engagement? Is it staff wellness? Is it clarity of vision? Or is it all of the above, right? And so we want to hear from you. So please participate in the poll.
Yes, they are participating. Again, what is an area of opportunity for your organization? That is a good rephrase. I like that, Chris. Good idea. Because Crystal and I would probably be like, well, what's the problem? Oh, where do we have room to grow?
Well, we have room to grow.
So we get it. We can follow you. We got this. We got this. Okay. And it looks like we're at, I'll wait till we're about 70% if we can get there a little faster. But I can imagine that you all know where the highest the highest vote is so far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Any guesses?
Oh yeah, I think I know.
All right.
Yvonne,
Okay.
don't sleep. We're gonna be calling on you because you
I
are.
know. I got to get ready. I have links. I have all kinds of things
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on.
We want you to share some resources and share your
Yes.
experience too. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll chime in with whatever resources that we have at Candid. Okay, so
okay,
I'm gonna
okay.
go ahead and end the poll and share. And as we can see, funding 36% and all of the above 36%. So it's kind of, funding is the big one, board
Yeah,
engagement also 11%, staff wellness 8%, clarity of vision 9%, but all of the above is also very popular. So I'll stop
yeah.
sharing that.
I'm not surprised by those results at
Yeah,
all.
same.
Okay, all right. So before we jump into our questions, and we have some really good ones, I want to ask my panelists, Jamal, Chris, and Jaquetta, how you doing? What's bringing you joy right now in some of these crazy times? How are you staying grounded? Anybody, jump right in.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. So I think for me right now, I anybody that knows me, I'm super optimistic, right? And I try to really I have been working on purging all the negative out of my life. That's from like friends that can't add value to me, all the things, right? And I read a lot, right? And I'll be upfront. I'm a person of faith, so I really dig deep into that, right? And so I don't really watch the news a lot. I watch it just enough to stay up, but I
Mm-hmm.
really just try to stay grounded and trying to just maintain because I know my team, I know the team is looking to me for answers, and if I break or if I look kind of shaky, they're gonna shake. So you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
don't get it twisted. I do have my resources, right? I have my places that I go. I have 3 coaches that I go to, and they all are very different. Everywhere from my mentoring coach, my fundraising coach, and my executive coach. So they all give me what I need. So that's for me. So.
Wow. 3 coaches. I love it, Chris. Okay.
I
Jaquetta,
love that. I may have
oh,
to.
Jamal. Okay. What's keeping you grounded, brother?
Yeah, I think you teased it by mentioning my daughter that you met 19 years ago.
Oh my
I
gosh.
think
I can't believe it.
sometimes it's that half hour in the driveway before you come into the house where I get to center, decompress, because when I walk in the door, they don't care about my board meeting. They care about, dad. And so it's really knowing that I need to be present in all those spaces that allows me to really stay grounded. Yes, environmentally, we know what's going on. We see the same tickers that everyone does. And I think you said it best, Chris, for my team, they don't need to see that uncenteredness. And so being a rock for them and being transparent because there are things that we don't know. And so I don't manufacture what I can't do. It's recognizing the reality for us all, but always kind of putting forward that North Star. Everyone that
Mm-hmm.
has come to my organization came because of what we believe we want to do and what we can do. So it's really just acknowledging what's real and still driving towards that North Star that allows me to remain grounded. Maybe it's an hour in the driveway some days it's 5 minutes.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to ask my audience if you put in the chat or what's keeping you grounded. We'd like to know what you're doing to find joy when things are going crazy. So
And
I would
we
love to
and
hear
we
from
have
you.
some answers. I focus on the helpers in the world that raises my spirits, encourages me, increases my hope, and revives my optimism. Belinda says my purpose centers and grounds me. I'm in a wonderful position and I can help.
Oh
So
wow,
we,
I
we have
love
some
that.
answers in there. Thank you all for.
Yeah, Jaquetta, I want to hear from you. What's keeping you grounded during these times?
Absolutely. So, you know, nothing is guaranteed, and anything in not-for-profit can change from one moment to the next. And even if you have multi-year commitments, those things can change midways. So I would have to say it is the purpose that I was called to do. This is the work that I was called to do. It's not always fun, it's not always shiny. I think being able to be transparent with my staff and my family, as the gentlemen have already stated, I think our families carry the weight of our service along with us because we have families that see, live it, breathe it, and they're in it, in the work with us. So I'm saying that to say, um, I'm a servant leader, and so in that, my faith is a big part and big component of my daily work. There are things that I can't do that I know um, the person that I serve can. And so, in that, that's what keeps me going each and every day. I recognize the fact that we do have to be that support system for our staff, but our staffs
Hmm.
also have to see that there's something that's holding us together. So, in those times when we're all down, we have to know
Hmm.
that I may just have to pause and pray,
Right.
which is my method of recentering. And so I'll say that, and I'll leave it there. I think it's really about being focused on it. And each and every year, I start at zero, and so
Hmm.
it's okay to start at zero. And even if when things shift and there's ebbs and flows, we still have to remain centered and try to lead and direct the best we can.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, Yvonne, I don't want to leave you out. What's bringing you joy right now, sis?
Oh, that is a good question. And I'm glad Jaquetta mentioned, all of you mentioned knowing how to still show and be transparent and human, because I think modeling is probably one of the greatest things when you see your managers, your directors, your leaders who are showing you that, yeah, this isn't easy, but these are the things that I do. Hey, everybody shut your, laptop at 5 or whenever we're supposed to. I'm not answering. I'm going for a walk. I'm going to do some yoga. I'm recovering from surgery still, but I'm back on the tennis court. Woo woo. So tennis all day. Although it's I don't have the same cardiovascular strength. I'm on the tennis court as soon as I can. Even in this heat, y'all, I'm still outside. So that's something that I appreciate. I watch, I play. I'm about to go to Wimbledon next week. So I look forward to, things that I really love in doing those things.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think for me, it's probably prayer. And I have a cadre of friends, and like Chris and Jamal, I have some coaches, mentors, people who I speak to when I feel like I want to blow up a building. You have those days, right? And then I have my little dog here, Charlie, who probably knows more about boards than any dog in the world. I talked to him and I said, "Do you know how crazy these boards are, Charlie?" And he laughs at me. But yeah, I just think you have to find the joy, whether it's your pet, whether it's your family, whether it's the gym or going to church or whatever it is, to help you stay grounded. This is the time and the moment to do that. All right, so I wanted to set the tone for that. And now we're going to jump into our questions. And so my first a couple questions are going to be directed towards Jaquetta and Jamal. So I want to ask you guys, as executive directors, you guys are leading nonprofits. Like you said, you have staff. Um, that's looking at you. You have funders that are watching to see the impact that you're having in the community. So when it feels a little murky, right, and budgets are tight, and whether it's budgets or politics or policy, what helps you to lead with clarity? Like, how does your identity, like all the things that you just shared with us, show up in your leadership during moments of crisis?
Yeah, I can take that. Russ, I mean, I really, when you say moments of crisis, my first thought is we operate in a moment of crisis as a nonprofit. And so there may be good weeks, but of the 1,000 calls of the week, one of them may be a challenge. So it's really level setting that even in the midst of that, we are here by choice. Most of every employer that I've hired is there because of their call, their desire to impact community. So as long as that remains forefront, they don't need the granular details of Jamal's stress as executive director, but I really just remind them of the work that we're doing and that the return on the investment that we see through our graduates, through our alumni. That is an energizer. That is something I can't put a dollar on. I think ultimately also it's just reinforcing that we are a team together. While we have different roles, different contributions, different voices, all of those different voices are leaders, whether or not your title is director, executive, VP. The reality is you're the subject matter expert on the ground. And so I really uplift that and kind of invert what is perceived as the power in the office. When I know when my coach says something, there's none of us that can say anything about that because that's informed by the work, and the work is what drives it. So for me, it's just reinforcing that even in the midst of crisis, we're here by design. And so let's do this. I just encourage that daily.
Don't y'all want to work for Jamal? Jamal, what's your website again?
Strive.org.
Thank you, Jamal. Okay, so Jaquetta, I know what keeps you guys up at night. I coach CEOs, I coach executive directors. They tell me at 4 a.m. they're looking at the ceiling, wondering about the funding. They're worrying about whether that grant is going to be approved and whether or not they can retain good staff and having them manage up for the board. All the things we know that executive. You guys are like magicians. I don't know how you do it. What keeps you grounded? How does your personal identity come out so that you can lead with clarity during times like this?
The children, our scholars. That's the reason that we all come in the door every day. We understand the assignment in the sense that we're there to provide structure, additional educational support, enrichment activities, dinner meals, transportation. Those things are critical for a lot of our families. And so if there were no study hall, some of those things would not be met. So when we think about as a team and some of the things that we're having to shoulder, oftentimes we can lean in a little bit more to that work because we recognize the impact that we see day in and day out that our children are living every day. And it ranges from being able to talk to the therapist when there's been a violent occurrence in this city. We just had one of our scholars have an impact just this week where his brother was shot in his arms and he's 7 years old. So those are the things
Oh my
that
goodness.
we have to bow our shoulders, stand up straight and say, hey, we're going to press through the thing. If it's the funding, if it's the counseling, if it's the meals, if it's the support for the single father that's raising this son that had this traumatic experience, if it's identifying them to resources for housing. So there's a lot that our young people endure day in and day out right here in the city. And so honestly, I don't have a lot of time to really get in my feelings about what we're dealing with because there's somebody out there that needs our work and they need it now.
Yeah, wow, I'm so sorry to hear about that young man, but I'm glad to know that you guys are supporting with the resources. Chris, you're not an executive director, but you are a leader by far.
Yeah.
Been doing this work for a long time. You're an executive director in the fundraising profession. So tell me, how are you doing in terms of leading with clarity? I know you're a positive brother and you're
Yeah.
in community with a lot of us who are fundraisers, but tell me what you do.
Yes. So for me, it's, the work that I'm doing, like how I view philanthropy has really changed over probably the last 5 or 6 years. And I just kind of see the impact of what philanthropy really does. So a part of it, so that drives me, like when we think about philanthropy, it is, about humanity and love. And switching over, going over to where I'm at now with the arts, you see the many people that come to the museum. Like last Thursday was Juneteenth. We had over 8,000 people to come to the museum last week, right?
That's amazing.
And those people were there. Everybody was in community doing life together for those 8 to 10 hours, right? And so for me, that's powerful, right? That's philanthropy. Like when I think about Miss Hetty Hyde, the lady who donated her home nearly 100 years ago, so Atlanta could have an art scene, so it could have an arts community. That was vision. So the work, that type of stuff drives me to be like, okay, we got to keep this thing going for another 100 years, so we can bring in the community, so they can have a place to not think about what's going on in the world. So that drives me, and I work with some really really talented people. So
Yeah, props to you. So I mean, the next question I was going to ask was about fundraising. So, we know that individual giving has always been kind of the background, the backbone of charity in our country, right? Most gifts come from individuals, but we know that even that has decreased, right? We know that individual giving is down. I think the number of individuals who are giving are down. How do you keep donor relationships strong when the numbers seem to be dwindling? Because, I know retention can also be an issue. So tell me what you do as a fundraiser to keep those donors engaged in times like this where they might be holding their pocketbook just a little bit because of the
right.
unsettled economy.
So one thing that I try to impress upon donors is that their support makes it happen. Like there would be no High Museum if it wasn't for people giving, of the funds. And so that's one, just trying to make sure that the needs stay in front of people. And that right now in this time for me is all about engagement. Am I truly engaging the donors kind of where they want to be and really how they want to give, right? People, the folks I deal with, a lot of them, they might not just want to give in cash directly, right? So they do it, they may do it through a trust or some type of DAF gift or something like that. So we have to meet them kind of where they are and not be so stringent on, hey, well, we only want cash. Well, no, that's not true. We want, I mean, we want your support, but we also want you to feel good about how you're giving it as well. So just keeping lines of communications open very clearly and just being open. And as Jamal said earlier, sharing as much as I can, being as transparent as I can, just so they know that they're in the loop as well.
Yeah. So Jamal, as a former fundraiser, well, you're still fundraising because you're an executive director. You know that a lot of people think fundraising is the F word. So what do you do now? I mean, I know that you told me that the individual space is an area of growth for your organization. But for the funders that are supporting you, how are you keeping them excited about the work that you're doing? Because they have options. They can choose to fund lots of things. Why are they choosing Strive Atlanta? Tell us.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke that's not funny about the oxymoron of fundraising, starting with the word fun. Um, right? It's an F word, so that's another thing. I think, I think ultimately, and I just did a stakeholder survey last week, and what came back from that was the intention of keeping them in the work. So it's not distribution of a check, although that's necessary. ETF, wire, physical check, I don't mind all three. That's fine.
Right.
But after that, it's making sure that that's not the end point. And so the feedback that came through that survey, the things that they see and are aware of and could cite without prompt from me, without slides, without decks, without participant in the room, says that they're watching, which
Mhm.
means that you are always in that funder meeting, whether or not you're across the desk or just doing the work, you are always being watched. And so for
Mm.
me, as I relayed the data and the feedback to my team with nothing but applause for doing that work, it just reminds me that it's really a relationship. Distribution of a check is necessary, but it's about what happens in the interim, and that
Mhm.
it's more than the PowerPoint. We're going to have the right deck, all the tools. Yes, I will make sure my marketing team will ensure. I say marketing team, that's me on Canva most times. Okay, just to be clear. Um, and I need that badge, to add that. But ultimately, it's beyond the presentation. It's really about the work and the relationship. And part of that is learning what donors want and need. So I know that there are some who don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from a student. I'm going to make that happen. There are some that want to come to graduation. I'll make that happen. It's about navigating and pivoting as necessary, being agile so that whatever your flavor is, I have it. Where I'm Kool-Aid, call it that. Because sometimes it's the grape strawberry mix, sometimes it's the orange pineapple. I'm going to get you whatever it is that you need. But what's great about that, I don't have to manufacture it. It exists in the work. And so
Mhm.
you're pulling. It means you being aware of where those different levers are that you can tout and bring forward. That's what for me, although fun, not fun, fundraising, it's just being a sponge and being able to squeeze out what is best needed by a donor or sponsor.
I love that they're always watching. I love that statement. And I think a lot of times we don't realize, we think, oh, we have to put on our best suit and best dress when we go and meet with them to have the formal meeting. But they're looking at your website. They're looking at your social media pages, right? They're reading your newsletters. They're seeing what your press releases are saying, right? And so all those things matter, right? And so making sure that you stay focused on mission, which is what seems that you guys are all doing when times get a little hairy. You're looking at the children. You're looking at the folks that you're helping in the workforce. You're looking at the folks who are coming and enjoying the art and saying, this is why I'm here. I can't let the craziness that's going on in the news deter me. I have to stay focused on these communities that are depending on me to come in every day and do the good work. So I'm really, really grateful for you. Jaquetta, we saw that the poll, 36% people said funding is what keeps them up at night. That's the area of opportunity for their nonprofit. So tell me about you. I know that you've had some luck with some anonymous donations that you shared with me that came in, which was really nice. How do you stay at the forefront in the funding community, letting them know what's going on with the work that you're doing and managing the day to day and making sure that your children are being served?
Absolutely. I will agree with what the gentleman have already said about communication. And I would only add transparency. Oftentimes, when a donor comes and they ask, what are your needs and how can I best be utilized? Most of the time, they already know where the gaps are. Many of them, we know the funders talk, and many of them have already communicated to understand how they may be able to come and give our organization some support. So I think being transparent and telling them what the true needs are. We want to, provide this great service and say that we're doing great things, but sometimes maybe there is a gap where we're coming short. And so being transparent and saying, this is a weakness or this is an area of improvement or opportunity, and we would love to see if you would be interested in that, and then presenting that as such. And so that has worked in my favor this year because I have been very transparent with potential funding that has been kind of on the chopping block that may or may not return, and just
Mm-hmm.
being transparent and saying, would you consider giving an additional $5,000 or $10,000 this year because there's some uncertainty in one area or another, and they've done it. And so I think just being transparent and like Jamal already said, people give to people. And so they want to know that I'm giving to someone that's representing an organization that has real needs, real concerns, and they don't have it all figured out already. And so I
Hmm.
think that transparency speaks volumes when you allow it to work in your favor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was in a room full of EDs. I was in Chicago yesterday at a conference, the Summit, which was a conference on inclusive philanthropy. So I had a whole lot of EDs in the room, many of whom were new. And the one thing that they said that that they were most trepidated by was fundraising. And so and Yvonne, you can chime in here because you have the resources. What advice do you have for new EDs who are coming into their roles, who are maybe have not had fundraising in their roles before, who are now responsible? They're the chief fundraisers for their organization, even if they have a development team. The buck stops at the top, right? So you're a
I'll
new
go
ED.
ahead and chime in on this question just because, like you said, we have some resources. So for this particular moment with Candid, we always have learning, right? So we have these webinars, we have introductory webinars. So people who are finding that I'm an executive director and I didn't know that meant I was going to fundraise. And
Yes.
so we have all of our classes, they're all free, they're all online. You can actually, sign up and then watch the recording if you're not able to come live, and that's on Candid Learning. So I'll put that link in. And also, what we realize is we've been asking executive directors, fundraisers to make sure their Candid profile is up to date
Mm.
on what people used to call Guide Star, and we're calling Candid profiles at this point. And if they are able to get a gold seal, and I can put those links in the chat as well, then we're giving Foundation Directory for free for a year
Oh,
if you're a
nice.
million and under in revenue. And that's just been very important to us because we understand that people are looking for funding. So if you need to search for foundation funding, you don't necessarily want to get to your local library where we have tools for free. It'd be nice to be able to do that at home or in your office. So we're offering that, and we call it Go for Gold. So I'll also put that in the chat as
Oh,
well.
wow. That's
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. I love when Carla does things, and I don't know if she's going to, so she put it in the chat already. But we have a lot of, we're realizing that people need something different right
Yeah.
now,
Hmm.
and we're being nimble, and we're trying to figure out, well, what do you need exactly, and can we provide anything, whatever it
Mm.
is? Is it training for your cohort? Is it, we have Ask Me Anythings. You're about to do one, Crystal,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
September. But those kinds of things where people are just so, I have questions. Like, I just want someone who does what I do to answer the questions. Someone who is, Team Canva themselves, who's fundraising themselves, all of these
Yeah.
things. And so we're trying to create as much programming that really meets the needs of fundraisers and executive directors who have, small shops.
Yeah, thank you. These are wonderful resources. Please look in the chat and check out these links that are being posted. So take advantage for all that Candid has to offer. But I do want to throw the question back to my panelists because I'm ad-libbing here. I know I'm off script, guys, but I really want to focus in on this fundraising stuff because I know how important it is at this moment. And so for those who are new to the executive director role who may not have fundraised before, in addition to these wonderful resources that Candid is providing, what advice do you, as someone who is in that seat, who is actually doing the work, remember the days when you were new to fundraising? What advice would you give to these new executive directors or to new fundraisers actually who are new in their roles? What should they be doing?
Yeah, I'll jump in right here, Crystal. I would say to any new executive director or kind of just new person in general, guys, things have really changed over the last at least 10, 15 years in our sector. You have the shrinkage of the middle class donor. You have what used to be kind of people's bread and butter was direct mail. All those things have changed now. So now you got the incoming giving circles. You have how people want to give. You have the shrinkage of people taking their money out of community foundations and putting them into family foundations and all these
Mm,
different type of things, right? So how you approach those donors now, and I would even say this is kind of my little how I tend to view it versus being versus it being a charity sector now. I think it's more of a philanthropic sector now, where the philanthropist, I think, kind of holds the key because there's so many charities out here, but you have less people funding, right? And so it's about now who can get to the philanthropist the first with the best kind of insightful stories that will make them kind of pull on the heartstrings and get them to, invest. So you with that, you have to just kind of make your whole approach a little bit different. Yeah, you have your strategic plans, but I think Jamal said earlier, you got to be nimble, right? Basically, if you might be going, your plan may say, hey, let's go this way, or you're going this way, but then you have these funders that say, I want to do this. Go back, talk to your board and say, look, we got these funders, they want to fund us, but it's not all the way meeting the strategic plan, but they want to help. So you got to be nimble. So I would tell anybody, I guess to make it short, don't think, be very nimble, executive directors and new people in this, be very nimble, because the funding sources look very different now.
I like that. Shaquetta, what say you on this question? Any advice for new fundraisers or new EDs who are now responsible for raising money? What should they be doing after they check out Candid?
I would say not being opposed to change. To the point that Chris just made, things are changing rapidly. As I said, funny that you have this year, you may not have it next year, even if they have articulated that. So you've got to be flexible. You've got to continue to look for the bag, and that changes. And so it does require us to, again, remain transparent, communicate, and make sure that you have a good rapport with staff, making sure that your staff understands the mission, understands the work. Because when the staff is not in the right place, that can really have a major impact on the outcome. So I would just say making sure that all of those stars align.
And Jamal, when I started doing this fundraising work, I don't know, 25 years ago, so much of what what we're doing now didn't even exist, right? This whole social media. I mean, what advice in terms of maybe some social media presence? I mean, what are some things that executive directors can do to get the word out there, to let funders know the good work that they're doing, and to start building those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've said it. Social media definitely, what used to be an elective tool is
Mhm.
really a must at this point. And so for me, it's all about listening. And if you listen, you'll hear where people connect with most, then you tap into that. You'll hear in that meeting with said funder what they want, and then you maximize that. For me, you can come in, I think Chris said it, regardless of your depth and your approach, if you have to pivot, you have to do that, but you won't know that if you don't listen, if you don't hear. And being able to be flexible and responsive is what's necessary for fundraising, because the platform will be something different next week or next month. And
Right.
so if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. What that means
Uh-oh.
is whatever the platform is, whatever the mechanism is, then we will adjust accordingly, because what remains constant is the mission, is the
Mm.
reason why. And so that doesn't change. The tool may, the platform may, the strategy may, the ask may, the definitions. We've seen the acronyms of DAF. There are tons of acronyms that you have to learn the glossary,
Mhm.
listen, go home and study it, and then the next time you hear it, you're not sitting there, what did they just say? So, I mean, for me, it's literally listening and then hearing, letting that lead how you then respond as fundraiser to move into the work.
Well, I tell you, I hope y'all taking notes on this sermon, because that was some good preaching. Thank you, Jamal. All right, well, I'm going to get back on script, y'all. I know you're all probably wondering, where is Crystal going with these fundraising questions? Let's talk about the board. That's my space all day long, right? What role should the board be playing right now to support you as executive directors, to support fundraising, to help you all stay grounded in these times? I just got back from Pittsburgh before Chicago. It was doing a board retreat, and the CEO just told me, I just don't feel like my board gets it. If I give them something specific to do, they do it, but they're not proactive. They don't call me. They're not at our events. Tell me, what should the board be doing now?
And I'll just add that someone asked this question, sort of said, would love to hear about these leaders, about how these leaders get boards to get involved with fundraising. So
Okay.
we all want to.
Yes, tell us. Who's first?
Couldn't get off mute. I'm sorry. I think as it relates to board involvement, and um I've had it two different ways. I've had board members that have been with me for a really long time, which can be frowned upon in the philanthropic community, because you want to have new ideas and new people coming into your organization. However, those people were very passionate about our work. And so and they were very connected in the city. So I think as it relates to their role, my board understands that the organization thrives and survives off of the generosity of others. And whether that can be going to their employer or going elsewhere to solidify an agreement with them to help the funding sources so that we can continue our work, or if it means getting things donated in kind, or looking for additional board members that we can grow in other capacities. So I think having that orientation when you bring new board members on to set the expectation from day one, having those conversations about what their personal commitment, their give or get commitment is going to be, so that you're setting the playing field on level ground day one. And so in that, when you have those that don't, then you do have to have a conversation about fit and about service and reiterating what the expectations are, because they're looking for something as well. They're looking for a service that they can give back to the community. And so if we're not being mutually beneficial, then we may have to go back and tweak it and see how we can make some changes, either internally or just making a part of the way, separation of the relationship. And so being able to identify that and not being afraid to have that conversation, because it doesn't have to be a bad conversation. Timing is everything. And what worked at the beginning may not continue to work long term.
Mm-hmm. What say you, Chris, on this? You've worked with boards probably over the years.
Yeah, so one thing, I'm going to go back for a second. And one thing that I've seen is that I think charities are so eager to get people on boards, and they may go after big names, whatever, but they often fail to ask the people that they're recruiting, what do they really want to do? I think we so often, just because Crystal Cherry is a big name, oh man, we can get her to be on our board. But Crystal might not want to fundraise, right? She might be more of a programmatic type person, right? So what I've seen, we often get we recruit these board members with these high titles, big names, but they often literally sitting in the wrong seat. You dig what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I think as you recruit people, first you gotta know your openings, know what you're recruiting for. And if it's a program person, you literally don't want a fundraiser in a programmatic spot. So you got to make sure that you're recruiting for the right spot. And as my friend Jaquetta said, put them in a place, be open with them, but get the right people. Don't rush it. Look, I would much rather have a vacant spot stay vacant versus just trying to fill a spot because, it's going to be, I got to meet a metric or something like that. No, because then you're doing more damage than you are good. So I
Right.
would just say, make sure you identify the needs and recruit for the need, not for the title.
Yeah, we got a lot of seat warmers on boards and just keeping the seat warm. They're not doing anything, right? So we want to make sure we have those folks who are clear about the expectation of them as board members. I can get on my soapbox about this. We'll be talking about, we'll have a whole board training here in a minute. Let Jamal speak up. Jamal, tell me what
Yeah,
tell me what you think.
what I will say is across 6, 7 agencies now, 15, 20 years, I've never had a fully fundraising board. I've had the 3 or 4 who are the go-tos, and then the rest. That's just been my experience. And so what I've taken from that is then make the rest meaningful as well. Maybe that means you're zoned in on the wellness of my team. Maybe your sphere of influence is not going to be a check, but it's going to be a resource as I'm moving into a new place or a new space. So it's really thinking about the totality of what you need as the organization and then identifying those pockets that support that. It winds up valuing as much as a check in sometimes. I say that, and the check is yes, the need. But for me, looking at the board as a collective makes it very different than looking at it as a fundraising board. While that's critical and necessary, it also means identifying the wins for everyone. So they're galvanized in their work and to support, and it's really helping a bottom line. There are so many things that boards can do that beyond a check still reduce your expenses. And so identify those things and then identify the person that can help make that move. It ultimately is knowing the full needs of your organization and tapping into that with a bit more intention than having a board member and being disappointed that they didn't bring you that check. If you didn't together develop their plan for the year, and identify here's where you can move the needle for us, then hold them accountable to that, provide support for that. But I think that front end conversation to help develop that plan for the year from cultivation through end of year is what's really critical to make sure that you don't have a seat warmer, but that the seat is moving. It just may not be towards the bank.
Hmm.
It may be another thing that supports your team, your staff, your students, your constituents that you serve. There are so many resources that boards can tap into. You just have to think about it more broadly than just the fundraising piece, and then speak to the value of those things. So it's fundraising by a different name. Like I said, there are so many things that boards are reducing expenses. I have to celebrate that a bit differently than just clapping for the person who walked me into Coke this week. That's great, but that's one meeting once a year. Right. And so if you have a whole totality of a year of an organization, you have to operationalize what support looks and feels like from that board and tap into those resources and things that they don't even think, many times that they don't think are within their spheres of influence, but they are.
I want to double click on two things you said. So I think taking the time, I mean, telling my executive directors, take the time to get to know who your board members are. I know you're busy. I know you're trying to steward donors. I know you're trying to cultivate relationships with funders. But if you really want your board to be effective, you need to know who's on your board, what their strengths are, what things they're passionate about, what makes their heart beat fast, right? And you won't know that unless you start having some one-on-ones with them. So when I was doing my board training and I asked my board members to stand up and each tell us a little bit about themselves and describe their strength, give us a word to describe their strength. And they were standing up and saying, well, I'm a social media influencer. I'm a visionary. I'm a strategic thinker. And the executive director said to me, oh my God, I had no idea
Mm.
that she was a data geek. I had no idea that she's into the bylaws. I had no idea that this person has the and so I'm thinking, well, you got to know them. So in order for you to do that, you have to take the time and get to know them. So coffee with them once or twice a year to sit down and say, how's the board work going for you? Are we leveraging all of your resources? Are we using your talents optimally? Is there anything else that you would like to do that we've not asked you to do to get them excited about being on the board? So absolutely. And then the second thing you said something about celebrating wins, which I think is really important. And so, I just had my board give themselves a round of applause for the good work that they did. And you could see their faces light up like, wow, you're celebrating me and what I'm doing here on the board, thanking them because they're volunteers and not paid staff who are coming in every day to do this good work. So I think making sure you know who your board members are and then celebrating the work that they're actually doing for you. Yvonne, you've sat in 8 million board trainings with Candid over the years. I know 7 million were with me, right? So I know that you have.
I'm gonna
So
say
tell
we're
me,
about to have another one.
yeah, so tell me what you've heard and what you know about how boards can lean in and support executive directors and also with fundraising.
Well, it's funny because I tend to mention you because we talk about the fact that some boards just don't know how to, right? So they have the enthusiasm, they're, down for what they joined. They're like, okay, now what do I do? And some executive directors or some board chairs are kind of like, okay, here are your marching orders, but they kind of don't know how. So having training, having hopefully you can find something free, or if you can afford the board pro to come on in, but really making sure that they're equipped, and then having a variety of things. Maybe I'm a party hoster. I don't want to ask for money necessarily, but I have a lovely home and I love to host stuff. So come on over. And so that's what I do. I talk to people about things, but I don't necessarily, I make introductions, I make connections, but I don't necessarily want to make that ask. So finding out sort of what you're saying, what are my superpowers and how can I use those things? Because once I feel empowered enough to make a difference with what I do well, then maybe I'll lean into, okay, so how do I take that next up and ask? Because now I feel valuable and I feel like I'm doing really great work. So I can take that next step. But you really do have to engage board members. I know kind of from both sides that board members, some of them need to go, as Chiquetta mentioned. And that's fine because maybe it's just not, we're not aligned right now. So this is not going to work. But when you have those that are engaged, just make sure you understand what makes them tick and what would they like to do, and they'll step up. I've seen that enough times. So
Yeah. And to Jamal's point, it's not always about money. So, I mean, I think there are several ways you can participate in the fundraising process. You could be the fundraiser, which is me all day long. I'm going to ask for what I want. Some people are just comfortable saying, I want to tell you about this great organization. Will you support it? That's your fundraiser on your board, right? And then you have your ambassador, someone who says, you know what, I'm not real keen on making the ask, but I will rah rah your organization all day long. I'll be your biggest cheerleader. I'll tell everybody in the grocery store about the great work we're doing when we're working out at the gym. I'm talking about mission, like, at church after we say amen, I'm telling you people about my organization. So you have your ambassadors. And then you have your connectors. People who say, you know what? I don't know about that rah-rah stuff. I ain't gonna ask nobody for money, but I'll connect you with people in my network, right? I'll tell you all day long who I know. I'll do the introduction. We'll have coffee. I'll have you over at my house. And so I'll connect you. So you should know, do I have a connector? Do I have an ambassador? Do I have a fundraiser? Or do I have all three? And so I want to pose that to the people who are here today. Who are you? Are you the fundraiser? If you're on a board, are you the ambassador or are you the connector? So put it in the chat and tell me who you think you are. And I think all three of those types are valuable. And if you have someone who's all three like me, go for it. But like you tap into those specific skills. So ambassador, connector, or fundraiser. I want to hear what people have to say. All right. All right. So let's move on. I want to ask my panelists, what is one thing you had to let go of this year to survive? What is one thing you had to let go of this year to survive? Hmm. Everybody's quiet.
Well, I'll just say
We-
with Candid, one thing that we're doing, and I mentioned the word nimble because it's literally a thing. But we had to let go of perfection because we realized that a lot of things that we do are very carefully planned. There's hyperlinks. It's bolded here, it's highlighted there, and I like that. But we realized we're not sure what everyone needs, and everyone isn't sure what they need either. So we're asking and then we're kind of deciding, okay, I guess we're about to have a webinar. Let's try to get all the arts organizations on to talk about what's going on. Um, how do we, wait, we don't have a political position necessarily. So how do we talk about this with data and remaining neutral, but giving data and giving good information to everyone? So there's been a lot of what do people need, which means you can't just do what you've always done. And so we've had to let go of some of those formulas or some of those things that we've always done and just pivoted and be nimble.
Okay. Thank you, Yvonne. All right. What say you guys?
Yeah,
What
I would echo what you said. Something that has become a recurring conversation in the program is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mhm.
That is something that we teach and we speak to our students um, as they're moving into the workplace and into these new environments. But it's the same in this work because coming into the year with a set of expectations, a plan, we have an annual year-end retreat, and we outlined so much of what we thought and said we're going to by Q1 and Q2. And I say by mid-January, by MLK's birthday, something had already changed
Right.
already. And
Yes.
so, and I'm saying that literally. So we schedule our trainings. We have a whole calendar. And the first, orientation was supposed to be January something 10th. It was the 20 somethingth. I say that to say it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so coming into this work, that's no different for who we serve, but you know why you're here, what you're doing. That kind of remains as a consistent pulse check, just to ensure that regardless of what happens, that remains consistent. The why, that never changes, despite the platform, the whatever it may be, the environment, the email indicating a funding change, as Jaquetta has said, they happen. But ultimately, resting in that and still moving forward is really for this year. That's what it's been.
Yeah, I think letting go of comfort is a big one. Well, we've all experienced that this year anyway, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of things that we're uncomfortable about we've had to let go of. So, what do you think, Chris? What is one thing you've had to let go of this year?
Oh yeah, I'm having just to really unlearn. I won't get too deep into this, but just unlearn a lot of things as relates to kind of how I'm doing work. I came from research, so now I'm kind of where I'm at now. So I'm just unlearning a lot of things that's going to fit my new spot, for me personally. And then I'll add another short blurb here. Speaking the truth in love is kind of also what I'm doing, right? There are some things that needs to be said, I think, in this day and time, but how do I say it? But also, but saying it with love, because I think at this point now it's a critical time that everybody is learning, whether you want to admit it or not, we all are learning. But how do I say the things that need to be said to help other people? You get what I'm saying? But doing it in
Mm,
a way that they can take it and digest it. So
mm. Jaquetta.
I would say letting go of rigid timelines and being prepared for the unexpected. So there will be things that you'll plan for at the beginning of the fiscal year, and there may be a calendar change to the school year, or there may be a deadline change, just any of the things that can kind of disrupt the flow of your year, and making sure that we have built-in timelines that are within the deadline so that
Hmm.
when those things happen, it doesn't kind of derail the whole project or the whole idea. And so oftentimes that can be challenging, but I always say if the deadline is the 20th, we're going to submit on the 10th, or we're going to be prepared by the 10th so that we can have a conversation about it. And so, of course, working with children, lots of things can happen. And so when those things happen, you still want to make sure that your timelines are flexible enough to hopefully still give you the end result that you're looking for.
Hmm. I think for me, it's been trying to let go of allowing boards to feel comfortable in all spaces. I was doing a training a couple months ago and talking about DEI, and we were having a really intense conversation about race in the room. And one of the women who had hired me to come came to me and said, there are three white gentlemen at the back of the room who are feeling a little uncomfortable with the conversation. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. And I said, well, you did ask me to come and talk about this. You wanted me to come in and talk about DEI, did you not? And she said, yes. I just want to let you know that they're probably going to leave. They're probably not going to stay until the end of the day. They'll probably leave before lunch. And I said, oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. So I am no longer going to try to tap dance to try to make people feel
Hmm.
comfortable,
So
particularly when
you
you.
when were you tap dancing?
Right.
I apparently missed that version of you because you always telling somebody something. Anyway, I'm gonna be quiet.
But I mean, I just thought, did you really bring me in to really have this conversation? Is this performative, or did you really mean for us to get into the
Hmm.
nitty-gritty about this conversation? So I'm not gonna fluff it up. I'm just gonna, keep it real and stay true to why I'm here and stay rooted in justice and equity in the work that I'm doing. So I think that's what I'm gonna let go of, trying to make people feel comfortable. Okay, we are rounding out, guys, and we want to give our audience a chance to ask some questions. And if you have a question, feel free they did actually leave, by the way. Yes, they did. And they were three older gentlemen, I will say too. So they come from the old, they're used to and accustomed to having power, so they don't want to share it. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Okay, so the last question we're going to ask before we open it up to our audience, guys, is what does a resilient and ready nonprofit look like for you in 2025 and beyond? Resilient and ready. Like Jay said, you got to stay. What did you say, Jay? You got to stay ready to be
If
ready.
you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
There you go. If you stay ready, you don't have to be. So, what does a resilient and ready nonprofit look like in 2025 for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, in that theme of staying ready and not having to get ready, for me, the constant, I've said it a few times, the constant is the work, is the why. And so, because that is the driver of our activity, of our operations, of fundraising, of all the things, the other things don't shake that. And so, for me, just really being centered with myself as leader, my team, who I know is looking and doing, with that being a constant, the constant that I uplift most often, it doesn't allow for those other things to shift us and not be ready if something happens. We pivot, we adjust, we're flexible, nimble, agile, all those things. But the consistent in that is the work, is the why. And so that mission is more than, the PR product, the fuzzy words. It's what wakes you up. It's my first text in the morning is from someone on my team. My last text at night is from someone on my team about the
Mm-hmm.
why. And so that consistent thread line towards the what we've deemed our North Star is what keeps us ready and resilient. Because yes, we've had blows and shocks and awes and disappointments and those things. But I think the energizer is that the work is there for us to do, and we came to this by choice. No one lands in this space. Most of us on this call, we chose. We know that we could be working corporate or elsewhere, but we are called to do this. And so, because that is the truth, yeah, we'll stay ready, we'll stay resilient, all those things, because we do this work by choice.
Okay. Thank you, Jamal. All right, Jaquetta, R2, resilient and ready.
Mhm.
What do we need to do?
I would second what Jamal said. It's the work. It's not always rosy work. It's hard work. It's heart work. And
Yes.
so in all of those things, there has to be a greater why. And we know the paycheck is not the why. And even in those ebbs and flows of, fundraising and loss of staff and what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the government, all those moving parts, you still have to show up and do the work. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and the rewards will come. Those rewards will come. And so the hard work is what motivates me and keeps me going in those dark times. And I believe it does the same for my staff. So having a heart for it, despite the outcome, is what kind of shows resilience, in my opinion.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll close out, and I'm going to agree. I'm going to
Someone loves your
agree with.
heart work statement.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the many of the chats. I mean, many of the comments in the chat. It's embracing the pivot. I think right now you got to, and we've already said it earlier. Like you got to stay nimble right now. Like things are changing so fast, and you have to be nimble. And if you're going to stay rigid right now, if you want to stay rigid, nah, you're probably going to burn yourself out or just not make it. So I would just say embrace the pivot.
Embrace the pivot. Yvonne, come on. You've been doing this work for a long time. What do nonprofits need to do to stay ready and resilient?
I think one thing that we're finding is we've had a few different workshops with funders and nonprofits. And what I appreciated is that those funders are feeling like this is happening to us all, right? So we're all in community
Mm-hmm.
right now. So please talk to us. Don't try to, handle it on your own, or don't feel like you can't ask for help or be really transparent about what's going on, because it's happening for us too. So there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of conversations happening that maybe didn't happen before, where it felt transactional, and now it's becoming a relationship with funders because you have to really have a conversation. We need more, or we've lost this. How are you feeling about, funders are pulling out, right? So you have to really say, there's no law against this. So obviously you just wanted to pull out. So there's a lot of like uncomfortable conversations, like you mentioned, and that's okay, because I think given the time, it's an opportunity, as Christopher said, it's an opportunity to say things maybe you wouldn't have before, to ask
Mm.
questions maybe you wouldn't have before, to ask for help in a different way. And so we're being charged with a time, right? And understanding that this is really an opportunity. Like it's uncomfortable because we're about to grow and we're about to do something very different. We're kind of
Mm-hmm.
blowing up philanthropy, which we kind of wanted to do anyway, right? We're just being forced to. So there's just a lot of different resources. You mentioned giving circles. It's the opportunity to do things a little differently and to bring those funders along who want to do that with you.
I love it. All right, so as we wind down our conversation, I want to ask my audience, do you guys have any questions for any of our panelists? If so, you can
Yes,
put
I
it
have
in the,
some. I have some in
Okay.
the Q&A.
Hey, good.
So this is funny because I feel this way too. Someone said, "Where do you get a fundraising coach? My nonprofit focuses on cases abroad." And the reason I think it's an interesting question is because I want to say at least two of you mentioned your coaches, and every time we have like, leaders on, they're always talking about their coach. So yeah, where are you getting these coaches? And I don't know if it's a fundraising coach, but where have you kind of come? Why do you have a coach? How'd you get one?
I'm actually a fundraising coach. I
I
have
know
a
you are. So there's one. Okay, so
um,
and we will have Crystal's information. Everything will come in the follow-up email. So you'll have Crystal's information. But yeah, how did you all get coaches? And if you have an executive coach, love to know that story too.
Yeah, so my executive coach helps me. So yeah, it was long story, but yeah, I have one, and he helps me to navigate this guy. So he's out of Montana. So he's out of Montana, and but he comes to Atlanta every so often, and so we meet up. But he helps me to navigate the really, really big executives talks that I need to have. I mean, because he's head businesses, he's sold businesses, he's C-level executive. So he can help me like really navigate like really big conversations with people that don't look like me because he doesn't look like me. So he say, well, you might not want to say that, you may want to soften it up a little bit. You know what I mean? So
mm,
that really helps, right? And my fundraising coach, I want to give a shout out to Ken Miller, who many of you guys know. Ken is a seasoned nonprofit professional, but he
mhm,
just helps me to just navigate some really big, from direct mail pieces to writing to just all the things. And then I have like a mentor and coach. Just me being a black male in this, right? That's a whole nother level, right? A whole nother session.
That's a whole nother coach.
Right. That's a whole nother coach, right? Just being and having and then shout out to my Mosa brother, Men of Color and Development.
Yes.
We have a safe space where we go and we can just talk. So all that stuff right there really helps, especially in this climate right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, are all of these paid? And how did you find them?
How do I find them? Just by being out in the sector,
Okay, so you met
yeah,
people.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
These
and they're all
fundraising.
paid roles, all three?
Do I pay? Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all three. Okay, just
Mhm.
making sure. All right. Jamal, you
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah,
coach.
I have a combination. One, executive coach I did not pay, but I was a part of a fellowship that paid, the American Express Social Justice Fellowship, which I highly tout, was great, transformative, all those things. With that, you were given a year with an executive coach. Because of our engagement, that relationship transcended the fellowship and he remains as such. At some point, there may be an invoice, I don't know, but he is so invested. He is so invested in my growth and development as leader that we've remained at this point a year past that fellowship. That's one. And then in terms of my second, I wouldn't call a coach as much as a mentor.
Mhm.
And the whole notion of mentor versus sponsor and that reality, this mentor actually is the head of a foundation. And so our initial meeting was fundraising. And so that foundation, yes, supports my organization and has from the beginning. But the reason it became mentor was because again, the investment was in Jamal, not the role, not the grantee, not the metrics. No conversation we've had is about data or performance. It's been
Mm,
about my development. And so for me, that was the litmus that said, this is someone that I can tap into as mentor to be able to remove the title, remove the reporting, and really just release. That for me was a critical piece of what became a mentorship. And yes, friendship, but I think it's a selection. I definitely vetted and looked at a lot of people. Anyone of note can be a mentor, but for me, because that relationship is real, it was a due diligence process and then ultimately a natural fit. So selection is necessary. It's not just about where they work, how long they've been there, what title they have. That's great, but it was much more intrinsic connection and a belief that there's something to tap into that became the litmus for me.
mhm. Jaquetta, you have a coach?
Not currently. I don't have a coach.
Okay. So, Yvonne, I have a whole cadre. I have the Fabulous Female Fundraisers, which is my network of women who work
Ah,
in this sector, many of
hmm.
whom I'm personal friends with. And so I definitely tap into them. And I also have a personal board of directors uh,
Oh,
who
nice.
who keep me accountable. So, and you can Google
Awesome.
that if you're interested in what a personal board of directors are. But just some folks who you've chosen to help you as you think about making some major career or personal life changes.
Personal
What
board
else
of
you got,
directors. You're so
Yvonne?
smart because you surround yourself with all these amazing people, and then you're like, you give and receive. So that's just very good. And by the way, Jamal, you mentioned, well, I know I did an Amex, maybe it was the same program, but I remember the Center for Creative Leadership, their coaches are who coached us, and we had a few of them that remained with us. So we got it for a year, and then they remained with us. So folks in the audience, what I'm getting at is that there are a lot of different programs that you might join, and that's how you may gain a coach, which is really kind of cool.
Mm,
Um, Another question we have is, how do we reach out to new donors in these times? High network individuals and just individuals.
mm.
And I'll start with Chris, if that's okay.
Yeah. So again, that space there is really, really relational, and that's something that when I talk to people about that, that is not a quick fix. It's not a quick, and so I would tell people, if you're looking for a quick win, you might not want to be, you might not want to deal with high net worth individuals, even go down that line unless you're willing to play the long game, because it's all relational. People with that type of wealth, everything is very and I say this respectfully, it's very insulated. So you don't get in, you're not gonna you're not gonna get in with those people via phone call or email. It's very much they have to bring you in, be brought in by somebody. So, but it can be done, but it's just a long game. So I would say I need to work on a relational strategy for high net worth individuals separately than your fundraising, because that is fundraising, and again, I say this respectfully, that's a transactional type piece, but high net worth people is all relational. And so it requires a different level of strategies, thought, and timeline. That
Hmm.
that
Thank you
probably
for
was a
saying that. No,
yeah.
that is a great answer because people might think like, oh, this is the time where I need someone really rich to give me money. And you're like, oh no, you're gonna be working for that. And someone asked that question, so I'll kind of add this on. Have any of you dealt with donors whose needs or demands are excessive, where the donation is outweighed by the time or resources required to keep them
Mm.
satisfied? So I feel like Chris was kind of alluding to, it's a lot of work. Have you dealt with that at all, Jamal, where maybe it's a whole lot?
Yes, of course. And I almost, I deliberated what I share here just because there's respect, sure, but there are some emails, some calls that you see and you say, okay, sure, what's this one going to be? The reality is, it's an unbridled passion that drives that excessiveness. And so I try to reduce my side eye, my annoyance, because the root of that is passion for what we do and wanting to make a contribution. Um, so there are times I have had to evolve to the place of, you know what? Thank you so much. I love that. Let's park that and maybe pick that back up after we meet on this, after we move the needle on this, imminent need, the exploratory idea that you had yesterday, who you want me to have coffee with because you think I should. Yeah, I mean, it's a relationship, and so I think transparency has been a buzzword in this call. That's necessary too. Um, but yeah, I've had those board members, and you know them. You know the email, you know the call. It's the meeting after the meeting. Oh, can I stay behind? Because I have this thing I wanted to say to you that I didn't want to say in that room. It's all those things. It's managing a board, it's managing relationships, and you get the full flavor of them all.
Thank you so much. So, Jaquetta, are you reaching out to new donors at this time? Have you had some, tough donors?
Absolutely. And it depends on the scale of the donor. Um, but I've had everything from, donors that want to read me the books that they would like to donate to the scholars. And I'm like, can you meet me at Barnes and Noble? No, I cannot. So it's a wide range. So when Jamal was speaking, I got tickled because I'm like, absolutely. You would be surprised at some of the requests that we
Mhm.
get for
That's
people to
funny.
be able to be self-expressive about how they would like to give and telling you
Mhm.
how to utilize the funds in exactly the way that they want you to use it. So, yeah, I think, that's where the relationships play a major role in knowing how to say, now is not the best time for me to meet you at Barnes and Noble, but we can have a conversation about A, B, and C. And so, but you've got donors that run a very wide range of things that they would like to do and how they align with the current needs of the organization or not. But I got tickled at that very point. But yes, I have dealt with that and we'll probably continue to deal with that because we as individuals have different mindsets about how we value things and
Mhm.
what's important to the donor at that time may or may not align with the needs.
And Jaquetta, are you actually reaching out to new donors right now? I mean, I would think, you gotta do your work.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
how is that feeling in this moment and how people are doing economically right now?
In this moment, it's challenging because there's a lot of uncertainty. People are losing their jobs. They're not really sure how long they will have a job and so on as it relates to individual donors. But it's even impacting our foundation community as well, because as family foundations have a certain amount that's tied to other things, and when there's shifts in the market that could potentially impact their giving ability. And so having those conversations about what they potentially think will happen and even how they may be able to refer you to someone else if they're not able to give at that same level, how they may be able to support you in a different way. And so making sure that we're open to that level of flexibility and providing them with some insight as to what our needs are, just to kind of reiterate that point and then go from there.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, Crystal, this is kind of funny, but it's a question, and you're here. You're the board pro. Someone would like to know how do you handle if how do you handle it if part of your board wants to meet virtually and part wants to meet in person? So they said, I want to honor all board members and offer hybrid, but some people don't feel satisfied. So, what would you do?
Yeah, I've had organizations who will say, well, if we're going to meet 3 times a year, we'll do two hybrid and one in person. Like so, they try to compromise. It is difficult. We'll do two virtual, I'm sorry, and one in person. It is difficult to do hybrid because when you're doing hybrid, you're trying to figure out where to put the camera so they can see the people in the room, where they can see the person who's speaking, where they can see the PowerPoint. I mean, it's really challenging, and I for one. I don't think that all virtual meetings are good because I don't like talking to little black boxes. And so I insist when I'm doing a virtual board training that everyone's camera is on because it's not fair that I'm in the room with my camera on. I mean, if I had a bag over my head talking to you, or I had a bag over my head and I'm over here making dinner, you would not be happy with me as the presenter. So I have to be fully present and in the space. And so why would you come to a space and then only give me half of you while you're making dinner or doing your laundry? And so I think we owe it to ourselves if we're going to come to a board meeting. You need to come at a time where you can put the dinner away, or you can make it later, or make it earlier. Do the laundry later. Get the kids settled. Whatever you need to do. And if you can't, then don't come. But I don't want half of you in a board meeting. So I think for those who say, you know what, we're either going to do all virtual with all cameras on, or we're going to do it in person. So I think it's up to the organization to decide what's best for them. For me, I don't want to talk to black boxes. That's just me.
You bring up good points because the issue is probably not so much that it's virtual, but that when it's virtual, people don't seem as engaged. So if you're like, no, I'm gonna need you to all be on camera. And something we've done in our meetings, we tried, depends on how big it is having mics off. Because in real life, you can't mute yourself. Like you would hear me, rustling around and, making my comments that I want to make under my breath, that kind of stuff. So we've actually tried, since Candid is pretty much remote, having the mics off because naturally you would hear me laugh or comment or whatever it is. So things like that. But yeah, I think that's a great answer. Be
Thank
on
you.
camera. Okay. So I wanted to hand it back to you because you had this lovely slide and
Yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
almost
So
out
we
of
wanted
time.
to end with an empowering statement for everyone, hopefully on a good note. And so I want to ask my audience, to those of you who have stuck around for the whole hour and a half, thank you so much. 191 of you, really appreciate you. I'm going to ask my leaders here. Amid uncertainty, I choose to lead with and then fill in your word or your phrase. So I'm going to start with Jaquetta. Amid uncertainty, I choose to lead with what, Jaquetta?
Integrity.
Integrity. Thank you. Jamal.
Great question. Amid uncertainty, I choose to lead with encouragement.
Great. Chris.
I choose, amid uncertainty, I choose to lead with empathy.
Oh, I love that. Okay. What do you say, Vaughn?
Amid uncertainty, I choose to lead with, I want to say humor really badly, but with care. Like just, we do a lot here with so many nonprofits, so we have to care and listen and have love. So yeah, with care.
Yeah. I think for
And
me, because this is fearless leadership, I'm going to say courage.
oh
Just
yeah.
you got to have the courage to go out there and do it, even when you feel fearful or uncertain. You just got to straighten your hat and shoulders and go on out there and do it.
Just go for
Do
it.
it.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yep.
so much, everyone. These are your organizations, and we are sending this all out. Just so you know, because everyone's not here still, but we're gonna send it out in the follow-up. And again, we just thank you for being here. Thank you, Crystal, for taking over. I like it, but it's hard for me too. But I appreciate it, and we appreciate all the good advice. And again, we're understanding that when people come to webinars and they start kind of chatting with each other, they're like, man, someone's doing my same work, in Washington, D.C., in the Bronx, and wherever. And so we'd love for you to all connect, if that's something that you're interested in doing. And that's pretty much it. Crystal, I'll give you the last word since
No,
you
I
know.
just want to thank everybody for coming, and I hope this was very helpful to you. Take the slides and go for it. Stay ready so you can be ready. What is it, Jamal?
That's it. That's it.
Like, I'll take that version.
All right,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you
Have a
all.
good
Thank
Have
you,
a good
afternoon.
one.
everyone.
Thank you,
Have a
Yvonne, for
great
having
one.
us. Thank
Thank
you.
All
you.
righty.
All right,
Bye bye.
guys.
All right,
See
guys,
y'all
be
soon.
good.